Hello. Y'all ready? My goal today is to help you have a better life. I hope you know that. I'm not trying to get in your business. Well, some of you I am. But it's for your own good. I want so badly for us to understand God in a real way. I think so many times in our lives, God is just there. He's somewhere else. And we know Him and we like Him and we think He's powerful and all this stuff, but we don't think that His ways actually really affect us outside of here. Like in our real lives, outside where we have to work and where our marriages and our kids and those things are going on, where baseball's going on and gymnastics are going on. And I got a story. It really don't have anything to do with anything. But I've discovered yesterday the greatest meal ever. And here's why. This may help some of you out. We had a gymnastics meet yesterday, and Ella got a gift certificate to, Texas Roadhouse. Texas Roadhouse. And so we went there, and I was ordering, and what I realized on their menu is you have a choice of sides. Now, I don't really like potatoes too much, but one of the sides was chili. And I thought, how awesome can you have meat as a side to meat? I always thought it was like you had to eat something like vegetables or something, meat with a side of meat. This is great. That has nothing to do with anything, but I just wanted to tell y'all that if you go to the Roadhouse, you can have your side can be meat. So that's good. All right, last week we started this series called Running on Empty, and I started because I feel like in our world today, most of us are suffering from burnout. Now, here's what I've learned is that I'm not nearly as busy as I feel, and I'm not nearly as tired physically as I think I am. I'll tell you what I've noticed, and maybe you'll notice this from now on. When people ask me how I'm doing, I'm like, I'm tired. I'm exhausted all the time. You ever feel like you're just tired all the time? Or like I'm just swamped, I'm covered up, I've got a million things going on. And really, what I started noticing is I don't. But I feel like it because there's a to-do list somewhere that's just stacked. Now, I'm not planning on doing any of it. My wife thinks I'm planning on it. But I'm not planning on doing any of it, but it's just there to really make me feel overwhelmed, right? Here's the thing that I found. I need rest for my soul. You know what I mean? Like I sleep at night, man. When I go to bed, I go to sleep, and I sleep. And so when I get up, physically, I'm rested. But that doesn't mean that my soul is at rest. I can still be internally so exhausted just from nonstop taking on things. Have you noticed that? Like, even if you get physically rested, it seems to not be enough. And so today I want to talk about rest, and I want to talk about how to move in to a place of rest. One thing that I've learned is that physically you can go so long and then you just shut down. And the longer you train and the longer you're at it, you can go longer, but sooner or later everybody's got a quitting point physically. But the more we do physical activity, the better we seem to feel. It works, it makes us healthier, that's what they say. That's what I heard. I read it in a book. But with our souls, isn't it kind of the same way? Isn't it kind of like we get busy and we get busy and we get busy and we can only go so far before we're just bankrupt? Now here's the problem with that. If we don't ever rest our souls, we never recover. What's that mean? Well, at night, you can sleep. But have you ever woke up in the middle of the night thinking about what you were thinking about when you went to bed? That's not resting your soul. Your soul is active. It's going all night. I woke up before just as tired internally because I was doing all my lists. I do those while I'm sleeping. They're imaginary. But I'm knocking them out while I'm sleeping. We need rest. We need rest. In Genesis, in the Bible, in Genesis, the very first part of Genesis, we have a creation account. Now, I'm not here to debate with you. I don't really care what you think. No, I don't mean that. I do care what you think. The thing is, people have different opinions on what the creation account looks like. Some people don't believe in creation. Others believe in creation. Some of us don't believe in creation exactly the way it was written. Science has proven a lot of things about this story that can't really have been exactly the way it's told. But you got to remember, the guy writing this was a Neanderthal. Like, I don't mean that in a negative way. He would have been proud of it. You know, it's like when you call somebody a redneck, they're like, yeah. Here's how you know if you're a redneck or not. If that insults you, you're not one. Right. If somebody says you're a redneck and you're like, yeah, and you take pride in that, then that's a good thing. So this guy is a Neanderthal, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, he's not as developed. He actually believes the world's flat. He actually believes that there's a dome over the world, and he actually believes that the lights in the sky are mounted on the dome. They think different than we do, right? We learn in second grade that the sun gives light, but the Bible says that the moon gives light. Was the Bible wrong? Well, it's perspective, right? You look up, you see light, you think the moon's giving light. We know the moon's just a rock floating around, right? So I'm not going to debate creation. I want to get to the point of what God's doing in creation, though. As He's creating everything there is, He goes through a period of 6 spans of time. Now, I don't know how long a day was. An evening and a morning, it says, was the first day. Now, was it 7 days? Was it 7 years? Was it 7,000 years? I don't know. And you don't either, so don't judge me. We know there were 7 periods of time, though. What we do know is that in 6 of those periods, God created all that there was. But on the 7th day, and this is in Genesis chapter, where am I at? I don't even know where I'm at. Genesis chapter 2, yes. Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. It says, thus the heavens and earth were finished and all the host of them. And on the 7th day, God finished His work that He had done, and He rested on the 7th day from all of His work that He had done. So God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all of His work that He had done in creation. Now, was God tired? I don't know. Here's why I don't know. I would think, no, how could God be tired? But then I think, just before this, He's like, we create man in our image. So I get tired. And if I'm created in the image of God, then chances are maybe He got tired. Who knows? I don't know, you don't know. We don't know. All I do know is that on the 7th day, God rested, and He set that day apart as holy. He called this day holy. Now, the word holy actually means set apart. So this day is set apart from the rest of the days. Now, a lot of us think, like, on the 7th day, you got to, get holy. You got to bow your head and be soft and wear, like, dockers and I don't know what, nice shoes or ties. I don't know. Ties are holy, right? So you got to wear something holy, be holy, do holy things. So like you may just say the blessing over the food on Sundays, on Sabbath. That's funny, we call Sunday the Sabbath, right? And that would be more like the Sabbath, the first day. The Sabbath would be the last day, right? Saturday. So that's a whole thing too. We don't know. The point is there's a day that's set aside, and that day is set aside for us to regroup, for us to gather ourselves. Now here's what happened. As God gives this law, and it's in Exodus, and I don't remember, I think it's like 12, somewhere around there. He's given the laws of the Sabbath, and he gives them the laws of these feasts and festivals and holidays, and he says, every day on the Sabbath day, you're to do no ordinary work. You're to set this day apart as holy, right? So what happens then is over the next several thousand years, there are teachers who come, and God uses these teachers to teach his people their laws. Okay? Everybody with me? Now, as they began to teach these laws, they interpret what does it mean to do work. Because I guarantee you we don't all define work the same way. I'll tell you, I definitely don't define work the same way my dad does. Because when he says we're going to work, I'm thinking we're going to die. So like, our definitions of work are different. So they had rabbis that would come and they would define what God meant by these different things, right? So as these rabbis over the thousands of years are defining these things, they're called the rabbis' yokes. Now some rabbis would teach in their yoke, like if you were under the yoke of certain rabbi, they might teach that you can't walk more than half a mile on Sunday. I mean, on Sabbath day. Man, not together today. Some rabbis would say you can't walk more than 2 miles. Some rabbis would say you can't carry anything. Some would say you can't do anything. Some would say you could do certain things. And what I kind of noticed was the rabbi's yoke seemed to always benefit the rabbi. It's kind of funny how that worked out. Like it always... Now, you can walk to church and give your tithe. That'd be like the rabbi would say, but you can't do anything else. You can't walk to a baseball game. You can't walk to a fishing pond. When I was a kid, man, we couldn't fish on Sunday. My mom would not let us fish on Sunday. And I thought she was a crazy woman. She was a legalistic rabbi with a heavy yoke. It was a tradition we grew up in where you weren't supposed to do, those days were set aside to honor God, to honor Him and His day. So then along later comes a rabbi, and this rabbi comes, and this is in Matthew chapter 11, and this other rabbi, and his name was Jesus, and he was a rabbi. And he had come and he had been teaching and he had been talking in parables. And this is what he says in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. Matthew 11, 28. And I'm in an English Standard Version. He says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden or burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." What he's saying is his teachings, this rabbi's yoke, or interpretation of what it means to do work, or what it means to walk in the laws of God. This rabbi says that if you'll come to me and you'll come under my yoke, my teaching, my way of living, I will give you rest for your souls. That was way different because it seemed the burden that the other rabbis were putting on people, the burden was what you carried from what the rabbis would teach you. The burden they were putting on wasn't giving people rest for their souls. But it was so much of a yoke that people couldn't accomplish it. And so there was guilt and condemnation. And this other rabbi, Jesus, he comes and he says, if you'll follow my teachings, if you'll yoke yourself under my yoke, that my burden is light. And I will give you rest for your souls. And so I want to start today just by saying, we're not going to find rest for our souls anywhere else. Your soul is going to be restless until you come under the yoke of Jesus. Come unto me and I will give you rest for your souls. That's why it's so important that we obey the Sabbath. Was Jesus saying that we don't need to obey the Sabbath? That wasn't what he was saying at all. But he was saying there's a different way. I'm a different way. My yoke is a different type of yoke. You know the law that there's to be no work done on the Sabbath. Keep the Sabbath holy. Keep it set apart. You know the law. I'm not saying don't do that, but I'm saying there's a different way to do it. And what Jesus was talking about was something that we can't get really. We think of work being what we do physically, but the labor involved is the labor of our souls, where we can't find peace, where we can't find rest, where we're restless. And I'll be honest, a lot of things we do in our lives, we do because our souls aren't rested. So we substitute physical list and things to do. We try to fill up our schedule so our soul gets distracted from its longing, its wanting, its needing, and we put other things on our list. So I want to talk today about how to actually schedule rest. And I believe with all of my heart in this that when we do this, we are falling in line with God's will for us, which I think is the point. A lot of times we think, you got to do holy things to be in God's will. No, you've got to do what God wants of us to be in God's will. And I think it's God's will that we rest. That we find a place of rest in our lives. Now, I think the biggest thing we can do to get to this place is to structure our lives. And to structure our lives around the will of God. And in that, everything is ebbs and flows. Have you noticed that in life, that there are times of work, of labor, and then there are times of rest. And everything seems to contract and expand and contract and expand, and there's seasons. Have you noticed that there's seasons? Not around here, but in other places, there's seasons. We have winter that day, and then it's summer again. So there's these cycles, and if you start to notice, Tim Turner, he does this incredible teaching on all these cycles that God, everything seems to be in cycles. And so in this cycle, there's work, rest. And that's the cycle that God has for us. But not just in that, God created the universe for these rests. Like, have you ever read in the laws that God says you can plant for 6 years, the 7th year? You don't plant? Why? The world needs rest. I know farmers. I grew up here, and farmers know this. They may not even know God, but they know you have to rotate the crops. You can't plant and harvest on the same field year in and year out and year in and year out. It will stop producing. Did you know that? So you rotate crops. You have to give the fields their rest. So what I want us to look at today in the real world, I want to be as practical as possible because I really do want to make your lives better, is that you need to find a place for rest in your schedule. And that's all there is to it. You're like, well, I don't even have a schedule. Then there's your first problem. Let me tell you why you need a schedule. And you're talking about the most chaotic person in the world, because I don't like schedule. To me, schedule means prison bars. Like, you give me a schedule, you just imprison me. But I live off of a schedule, even though I don't have one written down. I try to. Now, here's the difference. We've got to stop trying and start doing. We have to have a schedule. Now, do you know why you need a schedule? Because I said, because it's going to make you like, no, listen to me. This is important. You have to schedule. Did you do your priorities last week? Anybody? Anybody decide on a priority? All right, we talked about priorities. You might have to catch up on that one. You need to decide what's important for you. You know why? Because if you don't, I will. If you don't, your wife will. If you don't, your friend will. If you don't, the baseball park will. If you don't decide what your priorities are, everybody else will decide them for you. Decide what's important to you. Schedule your priorities. Schedule your priorities. Schedule by priority. But listen to me. Schedule rest. Schedule it. Put up barriers around it. Now, what does rest mean? Does that mean, to me, when you say rest, I think bored. Because I get bored like 5 minutes. Celia wants to sit and look at a pasture. I'm like, I want to move to a city. I want to live where there's things going on. I don't want to watch grass grow with my life. That's boring. All right. Now, we got a nice view, and that's cool. I can look at it and like, yep, it's cool. I've seen that. Let's move on. So rest doesn't mean bored, okay? But it means shifting into idle. Doing something you enjoy doing can be restful for your soul. Doing something that is fun and stimulating and exciting for you. You know, I love traveling. And everybody be like, that's not rest. It is for me. I need to go. That's my rest. I need to go. Because if I'm home, you know what I do when I get bored? I think. I think about all the things I'm not doing. And that's not restful to my soul. Actually, it's very irritating, and I come out with more to do than I ever had before. We have to schedule rest. Now, why is the schedule important? Now, you may need to write this down, but I want you to forever remember this, okay? This is going to help you more than probably anything I've ever told you before. I'm serious. Everybody's like, I've heard that before. When someone asks you something to do something, you say, let me check my schedule. If you don't have a schedule, you are going to say yes to things that are going to destroy and grab your life. When someone says, can you do this, or can you go do that, or will you be available on this day? You say, let me check my schedule. Now, you're not lying to them because you got one after today, right? You got one. And here's what you do. You go then and you check your schedule. And you decide if this thing that you were asked to do is a higher priority than the other things on your schedule, because you can't create time. You can't create time. So whatever you say yes to knocks something else off your schedule. Does that make sense? We are too spontaneous. We are all, as human beings, we're too much of people pleasers. We want to be liked. We don't want to tell anybody no. We don't want to hurt people's feelings. More than that, we don't want people to think bad of us. Right? I mean, that's the way we are instinctively. Even if we try to be a jerk, we're not really like that deep down. We really do care. We all softies deep inside. Don't be spontaneous in your yeses and nos. Get a schedule. Schedule rest. Now, here's going to be your temptation. You're going to say yes to something and try to bump rest off. You will, because you're going to look at your schedule and go, I can't fit that anywhere but Sabbath. The Sabbath day is commanded. You know why? Because God wants you to live. And if you keep burning Sabbath after Sabbath after Sabbath after Sabbath, keep burning them, there will be none of you left. And you'll think you're the most productive person in the world, but you're not going to be getting jack done. And you're going to be irritating everybody in your life. And you're going to be burnt out, and you're going to lose your passion. You're going to lose your drive. You're going to lose your ministry, because ministry is an overflow. It's an overflow of God's blessing in our lives. And you're not going to sense any blessing because you're going to be so burnt out. You have to schedule a Sabbath. Schedule a Sabbath. Schedule a Sabbath. If you have to be legalistic about it, saying, man, I can't do that. That's Sabbath. That's my Sabbath. Now, a lot of people are like, we're in America, so like we need 2 Sabbaths. Right? We only work 5 days a week. All right. Sabbath is 1 day. You can mow the yard on the other day. You can clean the windows. You can work 6 days. There's nothing wrong with working 6 days. You guys realize that? There's nothing. Don't throw anything. I know this is America, but there is nothing wrong with working 6 days a week. Why do we need 2 days off a week? Well, I'll tell you why. Because on the Sabbath we don't rest. We're not getting it done. If we obeyed the Sabbath, we could work 6 days and have more time, get more accomplished, and be rested and fulfilled and productive in our lives. Look, I'm just trying to help us, man. I don't want you to leave here and go through the rest of your life thinking, my life is passing me by and I'm wasting it. I'm accomplishing nothing because I'm so stinking busy all the time. I got so many demands on me all the time. Everybody has demands, but if you will schedule them, and you will schedule your work, and you will schedule your time, you're going to be more productive. Also understand seasons, okay? Seasons are important. Now, I'm fixing to get into a place that a lot of you are very, very guilty of not doing. Vacations are important. Vacations are important. Some of you guys hadn't had a vacation in years. Some of you are like, I can't afford a vacation. Well, come sit at my porch and look, watch the grass grow. Get out there and mow it if you want. I don't care. Vacations are important. Remember seasons? Seasons come around. You're going to have times of the year that you're going to be so busy and so crazy, and things are going to intrude on your schedule. But you got to take a break. You can't go on day after day, year after year, and be productive. You're going to think you are because you're busy. Busyness isn't living. Busyness isn't living. So as we schedule, we have to schedule our Sabbath. So we have to schedule our annual times off. We need time off. I try to make it a point to take some time off after I got 2 really busy seasons, one in the fall, one in spring. I try to take time off in the winter and in the summer. I try to take some space and give myself some time to refresh. Now I'm gonna tell you something. This is as honest as I can be. I haven't done that in a long time. We were good at doing that. We protected our schedule, but in the last couple of years, we have not done that, and our lives have changed. I don't have the vision and the passion I had 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I just don't. This week, I'm taking off right now. Those are things we have to set in our priorities. You have to set aside a time to get refreshed. Call it a vision quest, call it a vision retreat, call it a vacation. Whatever you have to do, you have to get rest for your souls. You have to get renewed in your life. Here's another thing that you have to learn to do, and this is something Jesus modeled for us often, like every time, is after he came out of an extremely busy time, like feeding 5,000 people, ministering to that many people. He sent his closest friends in the world, he sent them away. And he went up to be alone. Sometimes we need to go up and be alone. Because kids wear you down. Amen? Friends wear you down. Spouses wear you down. We get worn down, and we'll have a season where it is chaos. I'm coming, hopefully yesterday was the end of a season of chaos for me. It's been a while. I need some rest. I know that. I need rest. But I knew that going in that it was going to be a season. I prepared for it, and I ran out of gas just short of it. But that season ended yesterday, so now it's important that we take a rest. What does that mean to get away? Well, sometimes you can't afford to get away, but man, isn't it good to just turn off Facebook? You can live without it. I'm just here to tell you, you can live without it. You listen to this. This is the craziest thing you've ever heard in your life. You can turn your phone off. It's got an off button. Some of you, the best thing that could ever happen to you would be drop your phone in the toilet. Because you're just without it for a few days, and you'll go crazy. The thing is, it's not a necessity. You need rest for your souls. You need to regroup. You need to gather yourself. And I'm telling you guys, if we learn the dynamics of life, work, rest. Work, rest. If we will get that rhythm to life, we are going to be 1,000 times more productive. We're going to be feeling better. We're going to be nicer people. We're going to be more giving, more generous. We're going to walk in the ways of God a whole lot more. We're going to discover that God really loves us. We're going to discover that His will wasn't to limit us. Man, God's trying to limit my life. Wants me to take a Sabbath. I'm like, I'll take 5 or 6. Just, God, let it be your will. God's trying to give you life. He's trying to give us life. This is why Jesus came. He said, I've come that you can have life and life to the full. I've come that you won't waste a minute. I've come that you will have rest for your souls. This is the will of God, is that we work, rest. It's the will of God that we have seasons of work and time off. Sometimes, even in the Bible, there's years of Jubilee. Some of you guys don't need to read about that because you're like, let's do that again. What that means is that's a time where everything goes back. It's a big time off. So maybe you have an annual vacation, a short vacation, and then you say, man, we're going to take a month off. Take a month off. What if you took a month off right now? What would change in your life? I mean, other than being homeless. Think about it. Maybe you've gotten so tired you can't even see what it would be like. Maybe you've just pushed so hard for so long you don't even realize you're as tired as you really are. Those around you know it. Those around you know it. For us to be effective in life, we have to be on schedule. We have to walk in the cycles the way God created us to. If God work, rest, then we should work, rest. Right? A lot of us think we're better than God. He needed rest. We need rest for our souls. You got to schedule it though. And I mean this, I know a lot of you guys are just saying, nah, you don't even know what he's talking about. You need to write it down. You need to list your priorities, schedule your priorities, and schedule your rest. If you do not schedule your rest, it will be the first thing to go. Write it down. Put it in concrete. Schedule your rest. Work your seasons. Take your rest breaks. And if you do, your life is going to drastically change. Now, it may not feel like it the first day, it may not feel like it the first weekend, but 6 months from now, if you change this today, 6 months from now, you're going to be a different person. You're going to be rested, you're going to be productive, you're going to be loving life. Or you can continue this pace. And here's what I've noticed about my truck whenever it gets empty on fuel. It eventually quits. It does it. You can't just go forever. It eventually quits. I have to put fuel back in the tank at some time. If I don't, I'm going to be on the side of the road, and you're going to be like that in life. You're going to miss out. You're not going to be able to go and do the things you want to do because you don't have enough fuel in the tank to do them. All right?